Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and today I'm continuing my reviews of the Next Men. I'm doing what would be called Book 2, but in the regular issues since they're easier to kind of scan through them. Now, the first series did big numbers in the independent market. You know, it did especially the first issue, but soon Image came a little while after this and kind of blew any success as far as what Dark Horse was doing out of the water because Youngblood did some crazy numbers. But this came before it. But at this same time, John Byrne is doing the Next Men, and I think he has possibly either She-Hulk or Iron Man still going on at Marvel, right? So this cover was done a while for promotional it was a poster that was in the comic stores. So this became the cover issue 7. And this is a 6-parter, but there's also a surprise in this. So I'm not sure how long this one's going to be because it has 2 stages for me as a comic reader, and a big moment between me as a fan of John Byrne and a turning point. It's very much a turning point because they also had M4 here, right? So, in the turning point, that's why I bring up this. This would be a point where, as a reader, one of those few moments as a fan where you decide that the creator is wrong. The creator made a mistake, and the reader, is right, that the creator should not have done what they did. So this was going to have a spoiler in this, so stop it wherever you want to get out of this one, because this is a tough one. This is where I decided that the creator of this book was wrong, even though I had just started to, get into the Next Men as characters. And some other things happen. John Byrne sort of sheds a lot of his style that we've known him for to sort of do the Next Men, to kind of pare down it, get a lot of the extra detail, or you might even say unnecessary detail, just to give us the bare bones sort of stuff in his work, right? So that's 3-minute intro. I don't know if I could add any more to that, but let's get into this, right? The Next Men are out of the greenery. We don't know what happened to them, but it's here. This is I guess this one was called Parallel. It was called Parallel, right? This was the book 2 was called Parallel. So in this one, here we got Willis Dunklements and we have Tony Murchison, and they got this cool headquarters. We obviously get to see the Next Men's headquarters, so we're getting the classic superhero stuff. Here, these are the leaders, the Professor Xavier, the I guess who the other team has sort of these 2 sort of leaders. But this is a great intro. So we're introduced them. And then right here you can see it's very much a simplified style. Like all of the layouts and the Byrne stuff is there, but the finishing is way different. Very much simplified, but very cool. That as a kid, I'm like thinking of Next Men #1, and I'm kind of like, well, why is it changing? But it always changed. It always changed, right? So we have Tony. She's back in action. She's fully recovered, as it says. And then they're going through this nice intro of seeing the characters and getting to meeting them again since we last saw them. It's only a month, but in actually their time, it's been 6 months, right? Or possibly more than that, right? So Jack has these harnesses to keep him from destroying stuff when he's in public. And then they have this hint that does he even know that he killed somebody? And they're like, nope, we're not going to let him know that, right? So then Danny's thinking they're superheroes. So they have Danny here and they're saying what they did, because obviously there's no shoes that he could wear. So ultimately they did things to make the soles of his feet tough enough so he could run around, right? So that's cool. And then tricks that actually there's a basis for that, right? Like in karate, experts do use for their hands. So but at the same time, he's reading these comic books and he's talking to themselves, right? He has these long one-sided conversation. And he's like saying, but they can't really figure out what's going on here, right? And there's been hints if you got the Next Men cards, but there've been hints also in the first series, right? And then the saddest case is Hard Body, which is Bethany, and she's in these. Ultimately, the temperature is this cold. She's feeling no effects of the blast and any of this stuff like that, right? And then you see Nathan's eyes, which are a mess, and as his vision got better, his eyes got uglier, and then of course he's able to see through all this stuff. So then they basically gave him there's no basic control of it, so he has these glasses that help him help him out with this thing. And then I'm not going to say it because I'm going to get in trouble, but you can see it here. And what's the name? Here's her last workout. And then they meet up again. They meet Tony again. They're happy to see her. You get to see their loose code names: Sprint, Brawn, Bounce, Scanner, and Hard Body. Right? So they have them, and then they don't have anything to do with them, right? So at the same time this is happening, there's something going down in where the hell is it? In Russia, right? And we don't know what. We just getting introduced to these characters. They're seeing these images, and they see things are going wrong, right? The perimeter has been breached. Yes. Can't contain them. And it's called the Omega Project. Is that like the Project Next Men? Our only hope lies within our American friends. Now, I knew this was going to cause some trouble, but you see someone leaving Hilltop's bedroom, and I'm going to flip it. I'm going to do it, right? So with this rougher style of art, you're going to see, if you're a Byrne fan and you had issues, and it's cool flips things before. I think this is before Marvel was doing it. I'm not sure. But you got M4, right? So this is the other thing about Byrne. This book is the Rosetta Stone if you want to figure out John Byrne or want to get into his style of comic books, right? Because instead of doing your Brutes and Babes, he became more of a character, like a character actor sort of writer. Like what you write, like the characters that you would see in the actual books, instead of looking at sort of like Minority Report. I think it might have Minority Report, the short story around here. If you read this description of the lead character in there, he's balding, fat, and then the movie version is Tom Cruise. So Byrne is going in the reverse, right? He's doing, he's been doing comic books for so long, obviously to not always have the same babes in there, he does different characters. So we have this character here, she's crying. We met her before. She's a secretary to Hilltop who's been forced into what we know today as Me Too, a thing where he has power over her, and basically we find out why she wants to kill him, right? And then she decides against it, she leaves, and this is what I call the Frank Miller moment. So even though I was kind of iffy on where Byrne has went with his artwork, this sequence here just floored me. So I was like, there's something here, but I'd rather it look the real fine inking like the Next Men #1 cover. When I saw this page, I was floored. So there's Sin City coming out here, and this is why Frank Miller doesn't complain, because doesn't complain about Byrne or anyone else using black and white stuff, because you can still do what Frank did, but you can do it in your style and bring out your thing. You see, I think George Perez did some cool stuff in Sex and Violence. So this cool thing of the driving here, another car comes out of nowhere, and then someone's following her and chasing her. It's really clean in this silent sequence. I think is the whole thing silent. That's the other thing. So this whole sequence is silent, right? So we met her before. Everything is pretty clear, like that. Get bumped. Car spins out of control. Hits in there, still going, still getting bumped. And then someone walks out, gets clobbered, and we meet M4, right? So I'm half in, half out, right? I'm enjoying it, but at the same time, looking at the cover, I was like, wow, look at the thin ink in here, right? So thick. But then at the same time, I looked at that story, and I was pretty wowed. So I was still in, right? Here's something similar to like what's that character, Warlock? That sort of lighting. And I believe this is one of Byrne's favorite pages, and one of them is in here, where they're in this crowded thing. Is this the one? I think this one is it. Not sure. It's one of those two, right? So then the characters that we saw in Russia, they call the Next Men out. Right? No, get out of here. Get out of here. Then they started talking about the differences between the Omega Project and Project Next Men. And then they're flying over there and they get to see pictures of that. And they start talking about it. And to say one of the characters has the power of his mind, right? And they see the fruits of the Omega Project, right? This cool structure, right? This is a shot I liked a lot. And then he says, "There's another clue here. As they keep looking at the structure, it gets more complex as he focuses in." And then Luke's smooth back here is very more intricate. And then he said, "Telekinesis, you said?" And they say the Omega Project pushed further than what the Project Next Men did. So that leaves Bethany said, "What do you expect us to do here?" And he said, "Save the world." And then I love this shot here too. I was like, wow, that's a cool shot. And oh damn, I hit into the thing. Anyway, but they're spying on the Next Men, right? And then in Nathan's glasses, he can spy. And this other problem is that I described them wrong. The Next Men are kind of paranoid in their educational network. It leads them to sort of be skeptical of everything, right? And of course, they come in there and they said, "You didn't tell him about the glasses." And it's like, hey, like talking to them, he's not believing it. So then he decides to send our young Danny to get some help, right? And she is, going to show him some things, right? And then here's the battlefield. Everything that tried to stop him got crushed. So then the next one probably wouldn't have come if they saw all of that. But then they said, hey, they're not prepared for that. And they said, we've defended the greenery many a times, right? So this is where we get what I dubbed as Byrne's Omega Men, right? And even though they're a little wacky, I really like the Omega Men, right? So they come in, the winged character, and the winged character, chops their benefactor right in half. But then, of course, Bethany is able to resist that and takes it away. There's bits that they don't know about. That David was changed and morphed into something else. And then part of the structure comes out and captures the Next Men. And then puts them in front of the computer to see the dates and stuff about that about his history. And then he sees something that found his birthday, and he finds something out, right? So if we go to the other side, remember Mark Ivy get hit. I don't know, this one seems like it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long video. So Mark Ivy is, M4 has been hit. Feels like he's been dead for a week. She drives him, saves him. Nothing you can do. Cold as a fish. Then we find out what her issue was. That they're not going to be married. Thought it was going somewhere. And basically, she feels dejected, right? Because she's also known as the president's lady, right? Or the vice president. I spoiled it, the vice president lady, right? So she's looking at Washington. She's breaking down. And then we see the doctor. He got beat down, right? And that's to the next part. This would be even longer if I got into the letter page. Still going. We got to keep going. This comic book I had when I was working at A&S, and everyone just thought I was buying comic books to see stuff like that in it. And they were thinking, oh, comic books like this. It was a whole Wortham moment when I was at A&S, right? So here we are in parallel. We're back in the greenery. And as we saw them create like fruit, they also actually out here defending the greenery, right? We have Nathan and Jazz. Jazz is obviously younger than Nathan, but Nathan is, saying that he'll be able to deal with this. And you see him, what Jack was doing earlier, where he tried to create a gun. We see Nathan create a gun. We see then Jasmine comes in, and we see these kids, and these kids could possibly be some characters we know, right? It could be Danny and Bethany when they were young, and someone we never got to meet, right? And the battle, I think I own one of these pages. I do own one of these pages. And the explosions are great. Not on this page. So then Jasmine goes back, sees something happen to Nathan. Then of course, she finds Nathan. The next thing you know, they're both barreled over. And the next thing you know, Jack dug them out while they're in the greenery, and then they're stuck in this weird thing where they only can see we can only see the heat signatures, but we don't know why we're seeing it like that. And they're talking that, and Bethany is totally out of it. And then next thing you know, she's so afraid that this could be it for them. Of course, they saw what happened to everyone else. She just wants one last moment. So they're, doing their thing. We don't get to see much, but we know what's happening. And then we get to see that it was actually someone watching, right? That's why we're seeing their heat signatures, right? And then we get to meet John Byrne's Omega Men. Now, they're not classic looking characters, but they were pretty cool. And I was very I thought I wanted to see much more of these guys, like the Brotherhood of You Mutants or whatever they were. He said, it's fascinating, right? You think Aldous would allow this to happen? And then, of course, this character Vulcan, he's responding. And then he said, no, Aldous didn't do this, but he senses Satanus. And this guy knows both of them. Wow. He said, shall I terminate them now? It's like, no, he wants to examine them some more. Then next thing you know, you find out Danny's gone. And they know where he's gone. He's looking for his mother in Florida. Right? So this is what I didn't even expect. So let's get back to M4. This one's going really long. Sorry, guys. It's going to be a long one. So we meet M4 in the buff. She's like, nah, I'm out of here. And then next thing he starts talking. It's like, oh no. He's trying to remember, and he remembers his kid. He says his name is Mark Ivy. I gave that away earlier. Mark Ivy, you had a shirt that said M4. Right? So, put some clothes on. And they go to her mother's place. They slip out of there, meet the mother. The mother's happy. And then they go to rest. Sees Mr. Ivy, and he starts looking like one of the pictures that was up on the wall, right? Now, Mark Ivy, this story is a slow burn because you won't know how this is going to develop. But obviously, since she's connected to who's that guy? To Aldous Hilltop, it's going to lead back to the story. So while we're watching, I thought it was just a regular spin-off, but it wasn't, right? It's got Danny doing all this running, and then, of course, going to Florida, tries to get some help, but then, of course, the school bus driver doesn't give it to him. So he moves on, so then they're following him. They're trying to catch up. And they're just going to try to ghost him, right? And then we see this was one of the rougher issues. Now, he thought the sex scene was rough. This one is really rough, right? Talks about what's the name? The mother is terrible. She locked the daughter in the other room. She couldn't go to the bathroom. She's got a She-Hulk doll over here, right? And then, of course, kicks the cat. She's just the worst person in the problem. She tosses around there, and then this dude is gonna leave. She's also volatile. Gets hit in the face. He's a jerk too. And then of course she's all out of it. So Danny makes it there, and then he's surprised to see that his mother is there. He's very happy to meet her. Right? Mary Ellen Colby, right? And he's supposed to terminate her, but then they lost her. So that's talking about the woman we saw in Mark Ivy, right? He's talking about killing her. And of course, the woman that was helping Danny was actually a spy, right? She's going to play around with Aldis's crazy plots, right? So she's there, doesn't believe any of it. She's like, "What the hell is it?" And he said, "You in Washington?" He said, "Your father was already there." And I was like, "What?" There's nothing about my father. And he said, "Why doesn't that surprise me?" So then hence why we don't see much of the Omega Men, the surprise of the series so far. since he was obviously a part of Project Next Men, he wasn't above adding to the people, the actual subjects, right? So they got there, just trying to get some information out of Tony, and he's just giving it to her, and he decides to do even worse. She can't take it. She's out of it. And this guy is just totally nuts. He's going to torture, saying, why wouldn't you come with more powerful mutates? And then, oh no, did I not do it? I didn't flip it over. I'm a dummy. We flip it over. We saw Aldous say that, and this is more of a previous, tells you how they met. Thought she was doing a good job. Started working for, I think he's in Congress at this point. Starts giving her flowers, taking out dinner. They start playing around. Feel like it's out of control. Some type of commitment. But then next thing you know, says it's not going anywhere. She's just using her. She can't take it. She breaks out. It leads us to her meeting Mark Ivy, them escaping, and then next thing you know, here's a mom fallout, and then we see that Mark Ivy can change his appearance. Like, how did he do that? But at the same time, they get attacked. Right? We saw Aldous saying that they had to get it. So let's flip this over for a second. They had this cool sort of different stuff. Right? All right, we're almost through. I can't believe it. Possibly 45 minutes. So now, without the harness, Jack is kind of out of it because he's like, he killed somebody, right? This is something that having Bethany and Jack together, they don't know that their significant others are, just had sex. So she's there, she's helping Jack calm down, and the next thing you know, we find out who this guy is. Fleming Georgeson, who we met in the Next Men issue number 6. So if you're reading this in order, you didn't know that he got that old, right? But he was older than Aldous. And he also said in the first issue we saw him that he was the father of these Next Men as he was of these Omega Men, right? So he's far from dead, right? Ultimately, he has Hercules, who is strong, but is a mute, right? And totally loyal. So of course, Bethany's like, that doesn't matter. I can, I can't be hurt. But then ultimately, Bethany is knocked out. And then fights against Hercules. And then find out that Hercules can't be hurt either. And he takes out Jack, but then we see a surprise. We know that Bethany's here, what happened, so he must be really tough, right? He can hold Bethany by her hair, right? Then Jack just keeps getting his head punched in. So all they can do now is die. So the Russians are like, yep, the Next Man must be killed. So Jordan says Omega's already decimated the most powerful armored divisions. So they had to go for a nuclear strike. Right? So at this point, they're dealing with that, and they're talking about setting up a containment grid. But at the same time, the siblings talk. Say, can you help me, Danny? Help me get away from the mother. So, as they've gone through it, so Vulcan, who seems like Quicksilver, really wants to kill these Next Men. So here they make the decision that they must have more powerful mutates instead. But he said 4. And we got a couple that haven't been talking, right? So as we keep going, so he asked him to get the glasses. But he asks to create a service droid. So we see this creature, the service droid, go in there. And he gets the glasses. And then he said, wake up, you're having a nightmare. No, it's getting away. Hey, are you okay? Didn't you see that little creature? He's like, no. There's nothing there. You're frightening me. No. No need to be afraid. In fact, since the first time we got here, things actually on the verge of getting real answers. What's wrong? And then instead of the creature, we see this droid. So I don't know, Father. There's nothing wrong with it. It functioned perfectly. Maybe I've underestimated these Next Men. Perhaps one of them possessed some psionic ability which affected the function of your droid. We have seen no indication of such abilities. They may be an unconscious trait, they might not even be aware of it. It requires further consideration before they're terminated. Jack, he said, Beck, are you all right? I'm not sure. One Hercules threw you against the wall and knocked you out, which shouldn't be possible. And all this he did to you, yeah, I thought it was done for. But when Jurgensen left the room, what happened? It didn't make any sense. Hercules just disappeared, right? So right now, it's been incorporated. No more flip book. The flip cover, nope. We see the army outside. They come out with your hands up. And then they don't see him. And then Mark Ivy has his Terminator moment. He goes in, takes out some of the army guys. He's taking them out, injuring them, and they see it's Mark Ivy instead of the army guy. And they sound this termination order of an enemy agent. It's Hilltop. So they say, we got to get out of here, right? Take this old car, and they run out. So regretfully, we got through it. Took a little longer. And I think there might have been a scheduling issue that was going on with this, because this one came out really soon after 11. All right. So we get to 12. This is the end of Parallel, and it's incorporating M4, right? And to quote, nothing is real, John Lennon. Oh, so we get to point of what I initially talked about, right? So we get the cool locale. He's touching the wall, and she can't see it, right? So give me your hand. Put on these. Take your headband and use it as a blindfold, right? So he's helping her. Your eyes have been lying to you, right? But this is a really cool shot here. This is one of the things that the Byrne of 1992 beats the Byrne of X-Men, of what he can do with clutter and something looking really, really dirty. Where I think Kirby said that everybody's so pretty, and it almost like he took that to heart to go the other way, right? So he puts a hand in, and then he sees that the hand is in the wall, some kind of illusion. Everything about this place is an illusion, right? So they're getting ready to nuke the place at the same time. So at this point, they keep walking. And it says, let's keep walking. Where are we? If everything's illusion, it's some kind of sub-basement. I think it's the lower levels of, like the house on J Street. But it's not the huge tower. So no, it's just a fantasy. He said, Control had photographs. The more visual is tactile. There must be some sort of projection that goes along with it. Who created it? The Russian mutates? No, only one of them came in our cells. But I grappled him. He was quite real. And the bird thing we saw, I don't know. We got to find Beth and Jack and Murchison fast. You mean he vanished? One moment he's pounding me on the floor, and next moment it appeared as he was a ghost or something. So much, this much damage never done by a ghost. And then he gave you a terrible beating. There was something else. He grabbed your hair. That's not possible. So there's getting in the same place where Nathan is, right? And he said, how'd you get there? The door wasn't even locked. What happened? Don't make a fuss. So he doesn't want to hurt her, and he doesn't have his harnesses. So then they're like, she said, you can't trust me instead of your senses. They all have blindfolds. They're walking. So obviously when it mutates, it's generating illusion, Jack. My best guess, he's overreaching himself. Creating a tower, whatever menaces that cause the troops to immolate themselves. You think that's what's happening? It has to be. This is a rundown, almost derelict. There's no great scientific work here. It has been for years. Why the deception? I don't know. So this plays into the fact that the Soviet Union crashed, and somehow this thing was going on. So then we get to see the real world, right? So this is where he's deciding he's going to kill the Next Men. So everybody blindfolds off. And then at the same time, it pops up again, right? So obviously the creature was actually Vulcan. He said, what the devil, Nathan? Yes, I see it too, but it's not real. Keep telling yourselves it's not. What's going on here? How do these people get out of their cell? There are no cells. Why do you continue with charade? Dr. Georgeson, it's all over. We know what's... I understand your resourcefulness. Take care of them. So basically, Nathan is fighting against Vulcan's actual whatever his protective was all lies. Lies can The lies aren't here to deceive us. You're in a dream too. Why? He thought that Fleming Georgeson was in on it. And he drops Fleming Georgeson, and we see the reality of it. So this sort of thing here, but at the same time, when I got to this point, I was so upset because I was such a fan of the which I was calling the Omega Man. I was just like I couldn't see this sort of cool shot of what was going on here. I just like no, not everything is a lie, right? But I can see it too. There's no Cage, no Vulcan. There's that. It's getting away. I don't think so, right? Don't kill it. She is nearby. So then he calls himself Ignis. So who are you talking to? So he won't even, whatever this creature is, will not let Fleming Georgeson see him. So Fleming Georgeson is going to show up later in this series, much later, but at the same time, he won't show himself to his father because he knows that that's not the kind of Next Men they want. They want the handsome looking creatures like the Next Men and gorgeous creatures like the Next Men. They don't want misshaping characters. Even the changes that have happened to the Next Men, they're probably not happy with, right? And he's worried of this deception. So the Russians came and they were saying, he actually went to the Russians and said he would go, and he kind of believed in communism, and he would go there and have a counter thing to what Hilltops was doing. And then they would fake his death. He would go to, regretfully, he would go to Russia. You see, they didn't have anything good as far as there. It was fine. It's almost a third world country. But at the same time, you find younger and younger pregnancy. No changes in the fetus. But then there was actually one. The baby became totally aware, figured out what would happen to him, and then he decided to shape things how he would want it to happen so they wouldn't kill him, right? So he gave them what they wanted, right? Gorgeous looking kids. He had no other successes. So then Ignis started creating successes, right? When they decided to close the project down, it was more self-preservation. So then he goes off and says he's going to escape. Takes his father, like what? They get blocked, and he does all that. Next thing you know, there's the rocket ship. He escapes in a rocket ship, and then the tower actually leaves, so they don't have to take off, use the nukes. And they're in there, nothing there, but then they find Tony, and she's a mess. Right? The helicopter brought in, the crew survived. They're getting out of here, and then they realize that nobody saw the rocket ship, so Ignis sort of strolled away. And a little brief point to going back to Amanda. Amanda decides that she was going to get a new look so she could go about her business without being attacked. And here's the most famous Next Men letter page, right? And some Dark Horse stuff, right? So there you have it. Book 2, Parallel, is done. As I said, it's interesting because I don't think the Omega Men make the cover of any of these issues. So it's very interesting, especially this cover. that they just basically stuck out in the snow. And no, I had to be the next one. But ultimately, I was half in, half out. I was really upset that we wouldn't have multiple stories about the Omega Men versus the Next Men, the next fight they would have, that sort of thing. And over time, this story has grown on me, and I realized that I was wrong. That ultimately this was a good story. I just, you read a lot of comic books and you read everything is a lie, and it's just like the fact that you got fooled means that the writer screwed you over when it's not the case. The pieces of the puzzle are there, and no matter how many stories as a comic reader that you can plan for the next issue and plot out your own stories and come up with your own next fights for the Next Men and Omega Men. It's very interesting to be back at a stage where you couldn't predict what was going to happen, that you couldn't predict that a certain character was coming back. And that's how it was when I was reading it as a kid. So it got a little, took a little getting used to reading this series, because it was a book that I couldn't just say, oh, well, next issue, they'll all survive. Because now it looked like any of these characters could die. Anyone could be wiped off of the face of the earth. It was like the same way the Alpha Flight was, but even worse. They'd be sort of burned with no restraints, and not meaning restraints in a bad way, but if the story led to Jack being killed, it could happen. Or if the story led to Hilltop being killed, that could happen. So it was very much like it was when I was reading comic books as a kid, where you read it and you see the end of the Fantastic Four, and you're like, oh God, they'll never get back together. And then 6 months later, when you pick up the next issue and it says the end of the Fantastic Four, then you're like, oh my God. But at the same time, it's like, wait a second. You don't catch on to it because it's so, it's very much into it rather than being like, oh, this is BS. He should be able to beat that. He should be able to beat that character. This, I didn't know what was coming next. I couldn't plot the right version of the stories because I didn't know the characters and I didn't know the history and how the history worked within the Fleming Georgeson. I didn't figure out that he went to Russia. I didn't figure out that there's so many things that have the pieces of the puzzle that you could figure out, but I didn't figure any of them out. So I just was like, ah. But there you go. This was my big turning point. But there was also some other stuff that was coming out, which was, I think, it was, so yeah, before I end here, because I am at the end. At the same time, and I mentioned it before, at the same time when I was at odds with Byrne, I did buy this. And at the same time reading this, I was reading this book here, right? Which was coming out in, what was it? Earth Angel, right? It was coming out serialized from Previews Magazine. And in reading this, and then looking at this, I started to figure out what I was learning in school. So what I was learning in school was screenwriting, and they were talking about the difference between, popular movies that have the handsome lead, the gorgeous love interests, the supporting characters, and then the ensembles with the cast of characters of that sort of thing. And reading this book, it sort of let me know what Byrne was kind of doing. That he was writing these ensembles with the less than prettiest people, even though the Next Men are, attractive people. Everybody else in here, and what we expect out of comic books is brutes and babes, gorgeous people, and a couple of older characters. But Byrne was really going into the ensemble sort of pieces. And this book right here, there's no restraints. It's totally no holds barred storytelling. these characters get put through everything. So I think around the time of issue 9, I was reading this, and when I finished it, because everybody got it in this book except for there's a ne'er-do-well police deputy who never did well in the story. Him and this priest who has a past gay relationship, they become the heroes of the story. So with that said, and then reading this story at the same time book 1 came out. See that? I was looking at this. The characters in here seem like the ones that would be in the novel. These seem like regular people, right? So this kind of said, you know what? Maybe I should keep going. Now the next series, book 3, which I think is Fame, that one doesn't get us out the woods yet, but I was still in there. And the art gets even rougher than what was in this book. So it's just sort of not trusting myself as a reader and saying, well, let's see where this goes. Because at the same time, I think the trust was lost with me. But at the same time, I had a couple things. This Earth Angel and this Whipping Boy kind of pushed me over the top to stay in it. So we'll see what happens when we get there. So I told you I wasn't all the way in. So we'll see what happens from the book 3, which I think is Fame. All right, Spinner Rack out.